What's up, movie lover badasses? Fat Samurai Guy here with Lady Fat Blood, and today we're going to review The Babadook. Here's a quick plot synopsis. A single mother, plagued by the violent death of her husband, battles with her son's fear of a monster lurking in the house, but soon discovers a sinister presence all around her. Alright, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, so if you have not seen The Babadook, go watch it and then hurry right back. Now we're going to give you the good, we're going to give you the bad, we're going to give you the badass. First up, the good.
I could be totally wrong on this. I could be completely missing the mark on this. I found this to be one of the most unique horror movies I have probably ever seen.
Very original, very different.
This is not a mainstream horror film by any stretch of the imagination. We were warned very early on about, yes, this movie is really good, but it's a psychological horror film. And the first time I watched it, I was not really sure what that was going to mean completely. And then by the end of it, I was pretty sure I understood what they meant by it. And then viewing it a second time, the movie's metaphor, it's like a sledgehammer to the head. This movie is beat for beat a metaphor for your dark side. It could be anything. The Babadook could be depression. The Babadook could be anxiety. And in this case, the Babadook is unchecked grief. This widow, this single mother, has lost her husband violently, just horrifically. On the way to the hospital, she's been driven by her husband while she's about to give birth to their son. And she has never fully dealt with this. They set it up the entire film. She's a denier. She pushes everything to the side. She doesn't deal with it. She doesn't deal with her son's psychological outbursts. He's a very troubled son, but a lot of it you could probably chalk up to the fact that she cares for her son, but she doesn't necessarily love her son. And given the circumstances and given the fact that she just doesn't know how to deal with anything, it's not very surprising that she would not really be able to bond with her child. And in that aspect, I also found that the film was very bold in telling a story where you have a mother who clearly can't even stand the touch of her own child. You never see movies dealing with that, psychological horror or not. You just don't see movies that are willing to tell a story where the mother probably, in the back of her head, she even says it when she is possessed by the Babadook. She even says, you don't know how many times I wish I could just bash your head into a wall. Something along those lines. And I felt, especially being written and directed by a woman, that was a very interesting story to tell. But, you know, coming from someone who has had their own dark side and their own nonsense that they have to deal with constantly.
We all have that. Yeah.
I really felt that it was, the Babadook could be anything that torments you within your own head. And I really appreciated seeing one's dark side manifest itself. And in this case, this woman's undealt with grief and just absolute trauma of what's happened to her becomes the Babadook, and the Babadook just mercilessly comes after her, basically invades her, and the son somehow has this connection that he knows that the Babadook is coming. This is before the book shows up magically, and she reads the story, freaks out the son, who is very interestingly portrayed by a little boy who you wanted to just strangle. For the first 20 minutes of the movie, you had no empathy for this kid, and by the end, you were like, wow.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Kind of rooting for him.
Yeah.
Towards the end there. Now for the bad. All right. We have to warn you. We have to warn all of you watching this, okay? The trailers are deceiving. The trailer marketed this movie as it's a monster flick, okay? Or maybe a slash paranormal type ghost movie, okay? This is not that type of movie. We have to warn you, okay? When you go in to watch this film, it's very different, okay? But it's not what the trailers advertised it to be. So I see a lot of people getting pissed off, okay? Watching this going, what the fuck am I watching? Okay? We've seen a lot of reviews and comments of that because they saw the trailer, they thought it was one thing, and then they saw the movie and it was just like, what the heck is this? I don't know what the hell's going on. She's going in the basement. What the hell? She's feeding it worms. What the hell is happening? Ah! This is the worst overrated movie ever. The people that didn't know what type of movie it was and that it was psychological, okay, they were pissed. So we just want to warn you guys.
It's not that kind of a movie.
It's not that type of movie.
You see the Babadook for a handful of shots in the film. I don't even want to give it 10 minutes of on-screen time.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's not about the physical Babadook.
Yes.
That is just a viewpoint to give you an idea of what is actually going on. Yes. And it didn't have to look like that, but it just happened to. That's the design that they came up with. And I didn't find it particularly scary. There were a couple of shots here and there.
There was a creep factor.
Yeah, but this is not
creepy here and there.
This is not a monster movie
No.
By any stretch of the imagination. This is not the Babadook's going around killing people.
Yeah.
Nothing like that at all.
And you'll hear a lot of YouTube movie critics that say this is the scariest movie of years. I was terrified. Okay, it's no, not this type of movie. Okay, this is a very different movie. It's a very good movie, but it's not that type of movie. And now for the badass. The only thing really badass in this movie is the performance by Essie Davis. I have not really seen her in anything else. This is our first introduction to this actress. And man, what an unbelievable performance.
She was...
Wow.
She was fantastic.
I mean, this is like Oscar caliber acting in this film.
She spent the majority of the film looking old. And that's not an insult. That's not knocking her at all. She looked old. She looked tired. She looked just drawn out, finished with life. She was very subdued. Her performance was very subdued. The way she spoke to her son was very, okay, I'm going to ignore the fact that you just, brought weapons to school. Let's go eat some ice cream, yeah? Beautiful. I mean, you just want to slap her because she seems so weak, but she's broken. Yeah. She's completely broken after almost 7 years of having all this pent up just despair and hatred and anger that she's got going on in there. And I found this one scene. Her son shares close to a birth date of her. I guess it would be her niece. And they're at this birthday party, and there's all these like yuppie, well-to-do moms that are gathered around the table. And she's just sitting there just, she doesn't really want to be there, but, she wants her son to, be with other kids and to have fun. And so she's just kind of sitting there, and somebody makes a comment about basically putting her in the same level as unfortunate unwed mothers and all that. And she just suddenly she just kind of has this look on her face. And then the woman mentions something about not being able to go to the gym. And Amelia, the character, just snaps and just absolutely is like, can't go to the gym, huh? Well, that just must be terrible, huh? Oh, Lord, it was freaking... And then next scene, right back to being broken and just, oh, nothing's wrong. I'm fine. Oh, everything's fine.
Man.
Her performance was fantastic. And then there's like this middle ground where she's basically on the verge of completely breaking, and just about when the Babadook is about to basically just take over.
The Babadook.
And she's sleep deprived. There's just nothing. There's almost nothing left of her, and you can see moments where you can't really tell if it's in there or not. And then by the time it's there, it's like, there's no sinister diabolical acting here. She's a completely different person once this whole thing goes down. And again, it's
even her son was like, "You're not my mom."
Yeah. It was a testament to the writing. It was a testament to the performance. And something I found very entertaining. The look of the film was great. The cinematography was great. The sound mix, I felt, really added another layer to the film. It shows you how much sound can really make or break a movie. Sometimes I'm not even sure if there was much of a score in this film. There wasn't. If there was,
It was very subtle.
Yes, it was subtle enough that you didn't even notice, and that's probably a good thing. The sound mix was what really helped this film.
Yeah, but when she goes fully Babadook, it's, man, I mean, the acting is amazing. I mean, it is really amazing.
She's great.
I mean, for example, when she goes full Babadook, okay, it seems like she's trying to get rid of things that bother her and bug her, because she's gone now.
They kept setting up how much she was denying everything.
Yeah.
She denied that her son has an issue. She denies that she has an issue. She kept doing this thing with her jaw, and at first you weren't really sure what it was. And then, come to find out, basically when she's taken over by the Babadook, the dog's barking at her. The dog keeps bugging the shit out of her. She kills the dog. All of a sudden, she like reaches into her mouth and pulls out her tooth. So you find out she's had a toothache this whole damn time. That
rips
she wasn't,
it out. Fingers
just yeah. So she's had this toothache that she refused to deal with.
Crazy.
And so what is the next thing on the list that's bugging the shit out of her? Her son. So guess what? She goes on after her son, and that's when everything basically is just like, oh, we have a film. Okay.
Yeah, and the son is awesome. The son, like, we were like, yay, set up all these traps and was using it to fight against the Babadook.
So overall, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I love this setup. I loved how, again, the Babadook could really, if you've ever had a time in your life where you've had that voice in the back of your head just ripping you to shreds, this is your movie. And maybe a lot of people found it really terrifying, because what would you do if the worst part of yourself became real and you had to face it? You had to fight it. What would you do? And if someone, if you've been dealing with depression or anxiety or anything that just eats you alive, how do you deal with that? And I loved how this movie, there was no yay, happy ending, hey, we beat the Babadook. The little boy kept saying, don't let him in. Don't let the Babadook in. And what happens? What happens to everybody, especially when you're an adult and you're just bogged down with life? You let it in. And how do you get rid of it? You don't. And I loved this movie for how it dealt with the fact that you can't get rid of it. Even at one point, Amelia, Samuel, her son, has her tied down in the basement, and he's trying to get her to come back to him, essentially, because she's gone. She's trying to kill him. He stabbed her in the leg at this point. And she vomits out all this black bile. And you think for a minute that everything's fine. She finally hugs her son. She seems like she's okay. They go back upstairs, and the little boy, Samuel, turns around. And there's like this look on his face, and there's a look on her face. And he says, you can't get rid of the Babadook. And up the stairs he goes. And it was that moment where it was kind of like, if you're on board with the movie at this point, you're like, oh, that's awesome. That is so perfect. You can't get rid of this shit. You can't get rid of that thing that's inside of you.
You can just face it.
She runs upstairs after Samuel, and there's this moment where there's this big face-off where she's got her son back, and she's screaming, what do you want? And you see this image of her husband show up, and that's when you find out what actually happened to him. Because at this point it was all implied that he had died in a car accident, which is bad enough, but what you don't know is that...
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, oh, damn.
Yeah, it's a lot of baggage.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, you get her performance back in where, she's screaming, get out of my house, and
that was great.
It was just...
Get out of my house. Oh, it was great.
Yeah. And so the Babadook kind of disappears, but it's like, wait a minute, So you cut to the end of the film. She's killed the dog, obviously. She killed the dog earlier in the film. You see the dog has been buried in the backyard. And above it she's planted a rose bush. And you notice that the blooms are kind of blackish. Which is like, okay. And she's picking up worms from her garden, and she goes down into the basement. And again, the basement was where she kept all of her husband's things. And she would catch her son going down there from time to time, and she would not allow it. She would lock the basement, and, you know. So now she's going down into the basement on her own, and her son wants to go down with her, and she says, no, you know. She basically, he goes, can I see it? And she goes, you will one day. Basically saying that he's going to have his own Babadook one day, because we all do. Which I was like, oh.
Gonna have his own issues to deal with.
Movie, you're killing me. You're killing me with this. And so she goes down, and she basically kind of offers up these worms as sustenance. And at this point, I found it was really interesting that, yes, the Babadook was in the manifestation of this man with this creepy hat, and he sounded very Babadook, like that, right? Well, by the end of the movie, the Babadook, whatever it was screaming like a woman. You kind of say, like, sounding like Amelia screaming. And so she's downstairs with the worms, and you don't see anything, but the camera rushes up and, like, is forcing her off balance, and it's screaming at her. And she's looking at it like, and she goes, it's okay, it's okay. And the Babadook kind of backs off. The camera backs off. And she's calm. The camera's back to normal, and all of a sudden you see the worms slide away from her. And she goes back outside with her son, and he goes, how was it today? And she's like, it's pretty quiet. Oh, dude! I mean, you want to just, you want
Metaphor mania.
It's just, it was just something I was not expecting. I never in a million years thought, especially watching it this second time, I found it hard to watch because it was so flipping relatable. Just to know that there are other people out there that have these issues that stay with you for life. When you have something like that within you, whatever it is, if it eats at you, you have to deal with it for the rest of your life. It never goes away. All you can do is acknowledge it and do the best you can to live with it. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And obviously, if you were in the market for an Unfriended or a Paranormal Activity, this was not the movie that you wanted to see.
No.
But if you were looking for something a little bit different, and unfortunately in my case, something painfully relatable, it was just, I don't know, it was like a breath of fresh, demented air.
It felt very original. And I really, to be honest, I really don't see another movie just like this ever coming out ever again. So we give The Babadook 4.7 out of 5 chainsaws. So, let us know what you thought about The Babadook. Really awesome movie? Meh? Or a piece of crap? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And we'll see you next time with our next review of Cooties.